Hello, today I'm going to be making dumplings and I'm going to go over some of the ingredients that you're going to need. Okay, the first thing you will need is a press for your dumplings. If you don't have one, you can shape dumplings yourself by cutting circles like with a cookie cutter into your dough and then shaping the dumplings yourself. That's perfectly fine, but this is a time saver. It has like 37 cells in it, I think, and so it makes a lot of dumplings at once. You can get these on eBay or Amazon for about $10. The plastic ones will be just a little cheaper, but the aluminum ones will last you longer. It's called a pelmini press, P-E-L-M-I-N-I. I'll try to put a link below this video. And of course you'll need a rolling pin. You'll need 3 cups of all-purpose flour, and that's 1/2 teaspoon of pink Himalayan salt in there along with. You'll need a tablespoon of melted butter. You'll need 2 eggs and 1 1/2 cups water. For the meat filling, you are going to need 1 pound of ground beef and 1 pound of ground pork. And in the food processor, I have 1/2 pound of sliced mushrooms that I have ground up, along with 1 small chopped onion. And you want to slice your mushrooms first and chop your onions first. And then into this mixture, I'm going to put some spices, not much, but just a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to put 1 teaspoon of salt and 1 teaspoon of black pepper. And I use the pink Himalayan salt, of course. And then I'm going to use something that I think goes great with meat, and that is thyme. Okay, and I took about 8 of these sprigs and I removed the leaves until I had a tablespoon of fresh thyme, and I'm going to put a tablespoon of fresh thyme in there, and then I'm going to get this all mixed up, and then I'm going to add it to the meat and keep mixing. Okay, now I have added the mushroom and onion and spice mixture to the meats, and I'm just going to put some gloves on, take my hands and mix it all together. Alright, and why so much mushroom? That's about 1/2 pound of mushrooms. Okay, well, if you use just the meat, you might end up with a tougher texture, and I think that mushroom kind of softens the texture a little bit, and so that's why I'm using 1/2 pound of ground mushrooms. Well, it's 1/2 pound from the box, but it ends up looking a lot smaller after it goes through the food processor. But anyway, I'll be right back. So now everything is all mixed up and I'm ready to make the dough. Okay, now it's time to mix the dough, and I'm just going to use this enamel cast iron skillet. It looks burnt on the bottom, but it's not going to interfere with any of this. And so I'm going to take 1 1/2 cups of water, okay, and the 2 eggs, alright, and then I'm going to give it a whisk. Kind of mix it up. Then I'm going to gradually add flour. Now I said it was 3 cups of flour, but sometimes you might have to add a little more. So make sure you have some on standby. Okay? And so I'm just going to add it gradually. Okay? You can use a stand mixer if you want, but it's best to just add it gradually if you're going to be doing this mostly by hand, which I will be, because really, I'm not sure if I have a stand mixer or not. I don't think I do. I think I have a food processor. But anyway, this is just how I do it. This is how my mother made dumplings. The only difference is she formed them by hand, and I'm going to be using a pelmini maker, okay, or a pelmini mold to make the dumplings, just because it's faster. All right, so you can see what I'm doing here. It's going to get to a point where I'm going to start mixing with my hands, but I'm just trying to get things as evenly mixed as I can with this. And we're going to need a kind of a sticky elastic dough, but we're still going to need to flour the counter and all that and get that going. Now it's getting to the point now where, you know, this isn't doing much good, and I'm going to have to use my hands now to mix this up, and I'm going to reserve this flour because I don't want to go too far and use too much. Okay, and I've removed my rings because you really have to remove your rings for this. So I think I'm going to add the rest of this flour because it's still pretty sticky. And So here we go. I'm just mixing it by hand. Like I said, you can use a stand mixer if that makes it easier for you, if you don't feel like doing all this. And it's still pretty sticky. I think I'm going to have to add just a little bit more flour. So I'm going to get on that and get this dough ready to roll out. So there, I sprinkled about a 1/4 cup, okay, over the top. Not that much, because like I said, I don't want to go that far. I need this dough to be elastic, because that's going to make really good tender dumplings, okay, that won't be too thick. And I think we're getting closer. I think I'm going to have to add maybe another 1/4 cup, so maybe 3½ cups is what you might need. Just, you know, keep some extra on hand just in case. All right, so I'm just gonna maybe drizzle just a little bit more there. All right, so dough is not an exact science, and you can mix it once and then use the same recipe again, and I don't know, you might still end up having to add some flour. So it's still pretty sticky. All right, so I'm gonna have to work with it some. It's starting to come together, which is what we want. But I need to ball it up, coat it with flour, and so on. Okay, I added just a little bit more flour again, maybe a 1/4 cup. We want this dough to come together and kind of be easier to handle and not stick to our hands completely, but we don't want to add so much flour that it dries out. And so it's looking pretty good now, okay? And I'm going to flour my surface here and bring it out on the surface of the flour, put it on top of the flour, and start working with it. Okay, I've floured my surface pretty heavily at first, and that's because I want to take this pelmini mold, okay, and I want to coat it with flour so that when I'm trying to make the dumplings, the flour, the dough and everything doesn't stick. So I just want to get a good coating on here, and be careful handling this thing. All right, for some reason it didn't want to coat the other way, but be careful when you handle this thing, because it is sharp. It is a cutter, you know, and so you don't want to cut your fingers or anything while you're working with this. And but I think it's just a ingenious little thing. These little cells remind me of like a honeycomb or something like that, and it just makes the cutest little dumplings. It really does. And so yeah, just kind of flour it down and watch your fingers. Okay, and that's about the best you can do. And of course you want to flour your rolling pin, which you'll be using to go over the top of this. What's going to happen is there's going to be a layer of dough put on top of this, and then there's going to be a 1/2 teaspoon or whatever of meat put in each of these cells on top of the dough, and then another layer of dough is going to go on top of that, and then you roll with your rolling pin to press the dumplings out of the cells. So I'm going to push some of this flour aside, because I don't want to get my dough too dry. I just wanted to flour the counter a little bit, but not go too crazy. And the dough, I'll show you what it looks like. It's still quite moist, okay, and it's still kind of sticky, okay, but I'm going to put it here, all right, and then I don't want to use too much flour, just enough to where I can work it a little bit, okay, because like I said, it needs to stay elastic. It doesn't need to get too dry, but you can kind of see the texture it is, okay. It's a nice stretchy kind of little dough, and I'm just kind of adding enough flour to where, you know, I can work with it. All right, and so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be dividing this ball up. I need an amount that will stretch over this, and so I'm going to assume that that's going to be about, I don't know, for right now, 1/2 of it, right? I might have too much, okay, but so I'm just going to get it to where I can work with it and roll it out. Same thing with this little doodad over here, okay, and I'm just going to kind of set these aside. Like I said, this might be too much. I might end up doing a little re-roll or something of a portion of one of these, and so yeah, I am kind of starting to think that I should divide these in half. I really am. So that might be what happens. Let me see what happens if I do that, all right? Let me just kind of divide that in half and set that over to the side. Now, whatever dough that you're not using, you need to wrap it, okay, with cling wrap to keep it moist, because it will dry out really fast. So I have this one right here, okay, and then I'm going to start rolling it out. Yeah, I think that's going to be enough, okay, to go over this, okay. It might actually even be a little too much, so it looks like it's going to make, I don't know, maybe 2 different presses, you know, as far as the dumplings go. And so I'm going to take a second and wrap up this dough, okay, so that it doesn't dry out while I'm working with this dough. Okay, something I forgot to mention earlier, I did add the melted butter. I did it off camera because I forgot about it because it was in the microwave. But anyway, it did get added into the dough mixture. And now I have this, I think, into something that I would call workable, okay? Trying not to use flour as much as possible, just trying to avoid it, but, you know, have to use it. So now it's time to roll out this dough, and the goal is to get it to where it's the same size as this, okay, so that it'll stretch over this. So I'm going to get busy on that. Okay, how do I know when it's time to pick this dough up, okay, and put it over the top of this press, okay? Well, what I do is I just lay it there like that, all right, and I see if it measures out right. Then I'll lift this up and put it on the press. Now, what I have done here is I have rolled this down, okay, after flouring the top. Okay, that way I don't have to lift the dough completely up. All right, I can just kind of roll it back across the top. Just kind of stretch it out just a little bit. Maybe lift it and move it a little bit, okay, because picking it up and stuff, you know, can cause the dough to tear, which, you know, I have a few little weak places there. All right, and so I'm just going to kind of gobbledygook them together, and they should be fine. And so now I have the top covered. All right, and now it's time to start putting some meat in each one of these little cells. So I'm going to take my finger and just kind of dimple them a little bit, okay, and that will tell me about where it goes, okay. And so I'm going to get on that now. Okay, now it's time to start putting the meat in the cells, okay, and it's just going to be like just a little dab like that in each one, like a half teaspoon. There's a little bit too much in that one, so you get the idea. I'm going to take a little bit out of that. Okay, so think about a half a teaspoon. All right, goes in each of these little cells. That one's still too big. I'm just going to take that one out and deal with it all together. This is hard to do on camera, by the way. I have to look at the camera to see how it looks down here and all that. But anyway, I'm going to finish this up. Then we're going to go over the top with another layer of dough, and I'll show you the rest. I think something that will help you is to take a teaspoon, a little measuring teaspoon like this. Okay, I think I said half a teaspoon, but you know, you definitely don't want it to be more than a teaspoon. That turns out to be pretty much about the perfect amount like that. So I think that'll be a helpful tip for you. So if when you put the meat in this little teaspoon measuring, if you'll just level it off like that, you can't go wrong. It seems to be the perfect amount. So there it is with all the cells filled up. Before I lay on the second layer of dough and roll this out, I'm going to go around the edges and kind of clean them up and try to make sure that all the meat is in the cells as much as possible. Okay, again, I have this circle kind of patted out, and I'm going to roll it out now. I'm going to keep my rolling pin floured and just gently roll this out, okay, until it's the size I need it to be, which will cover the pelmini press or pelmini mold, whatever you want to call it. And that just about has it. Now, when I pulled the dough out of the plastic, you know, it was still sticky like that. And so, of course, you know, that allows me to add the flour that I need to do this. And so now it's time to and now it's time to do the rolling. I'm sorry. There. Trying to keep this to where you can see what I'm doing, and the camera don't want to cooperate. So anyway, now it's time to roll this out. Okay. And you've got to press pretty hard All right, and keep flour on your rolling pin, because if you don't, you'll get tearing like what just happened there, because the dough is still a little on the damp side, but you know, it's really a balancing act. You can't get it too dry or you won't have good dumplings. Okay, so just keep your rolling pin floured, all right, and keep it clean. If it has dough on it, dough buildup, get a knife and scrape that off, all right, because you don't want that either. And just keep pressing and pressing. And see, I have a little meat right there. That's why you want to try to keep the meat inside the cells and not straying outside. So measuring each little meatball or whatever you want to call it is kind of important. So I'm going to continue this process until I have nice clean separations, okay, like I'm starting to get. Okay, I've torn that away, this piece right here, all right, and now I should just be able to dump these, okay. All right, and like I said, that dough is sticky, so it's not really wanting to come out all that great, but I might have to take and kind of press them out a little bit, kind of encourage them to come out. But you want to be gentle because you don't want to tear up your dumplings. All right, and as you can see, they make these little hexagon looking shapes like that one there. Okay, and it's all sealed on all the sides. Really sweet little dumplings, and so I think we're going to really enjoy these. And there you have it, 37 dumplings. I will tell you this, I think a teaspoon is too much. I think maybe a half teaspoon is better. I think it'll make it easier to get the dumplings out. I haven't used this particular dumpling press before, the aluminum one. Seems like the plastic one, the dumplings come out a little bit easier, but you know, that's just, you know, my opinion. And also, I think my dough, you know, was still kind of wet, which, you know, was a catch-22. You know, is the dough too wet? Is it too dry? You will have to kind of experiment with it. That's why you want to start with 3 cups of flour and then add more as you need to, and need even more. Sometimes you'll have one that tears, even with the plastic mold, okay? And so you just have to kind of like pinch it together, you know, and it'll be all right. But anyway, there we have it. This is dumplings with pork and beef and seasonings. And we have 37, like I said, because there's 37 cells in this. There's different sizes of these. Some of them have more, some of them have less as far as the cells go. And so, anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'm going to start cooking these, and I'll get right back to you. Okay, now I have this cast iron enamel lined pot on the stove. I have 4 cups of beef broth, okay, and I'm just using this kind right here, all right. Now, my dad liked a little bit of beer in the beef broth, so for him I would do like 3.5 cups of beef broth and 1/2 cup of beer. But you know, that's up to you. So just the great value kind is fine, whatever generic, it doesn't matter what store it comes from. Now once this comes to a boil, I'm going to drop my dumplings in, okay, and I'm going to let them cook until they float, and that will tell me that they're done. So I will be right back. Okay, I've had my dumplings in the refrigerator. Of course, I floured this before I laid the dumplings on it because I don't want them to stick. Alright, and they will stick together a little bit, okay? Now, once the water has been brought to a boil, not the water, the broth, okay, I'm going to drop the dumplings in, and like I said, I'm just going to wait for them to rise. And it looks like I need to get one down in there. It's being ornery. Let me get a spoon. So there's 37 dumplings here. All right, I'm going to turn this down, by the way. I'm going to turn it on about medium. All right, because you don't want to keep it at a real hard boil. That will make the dumplings come apart. But I would say this serves maybe 2, maybe 3. So just depends on how many dumplings, you know, your family wants to eat. So I'm going to cook these off until they all float. on a gentle boil, like I said, because I don't want them to break apart. That's why I'm not leaving them on a hard boil. And just kind of trying to spread these out. I want to be able to tell, you know, when they float, and so that's why I'm spreading them out and, you know, kind of keeping them to where they don't overlap too much, because, you know, like I said, I want to be able to tell what's going on with them. And I might have to turn this a little bit above medium. That might be a little bit too low, so I'm going to go between medium and medium high right now, because I think I need a little bit more of a boil. And I might have to wait to drop the rest of these, because I think I've cooled off the broth a little too fast, because these have been in the fridge. But you can see now they're starting to cook. Alright, they're looking quite delicious. Doesn't that look nice? Yeah, that looks so good to me. And at the end of it all, I will probably pour a little beer in mine. Now my husband, he doesn't care for the taste of alcohol. Okay, so I won't put any in his, but I will reserve some for me and add some beer to my beef broth. Then at the very end of it, okay, I'm going to also add some sour cream. I always like sour cream on these. Sour cream is so good on these, you just wouldn't believe it. And so now that the other ones have cooked some, I could drop the rest of them in without worrying about them sticking together, because they have different textures now. So I think I need to turn this up again just a little bit. Alright, there we go. And I'll just wait for all of these to float, and then we'll move on with the rest. As you can see, they are all almost floating. I'm going to wait until they're all floating. That will tell me that they're done. They're still on a gentle boil. I've got it on medium high. Like I said, I'm reluctant to put it on a high boil, because they might break apart, and that's just not the desired effect. Okay, I'm about maybe 8 minutes in. They're all floating now, so I'm going to remove them from the heat and get ready to finish them off. Okay, I wanted to show you an alternate way to make these dumplings in case you don't have a dumpling press, and this is the way my mom would make them. I have this little glass here. Looks like it's about maybe 3 inches in diameter. Okay, it's not that big. Let's say my finger there goes across. And I'm going to put the end of the glass kind of in the flour, and then I'm going to cut a circle, right? Pick it up. You see how tiny that is? And then I'm going to take a teaspoon of meat, which when you're using the press, okay, the mold, I think a half a teaspoon is better, okay? But for this method, you can use a full teaspoon. Okay, and you're just going to fold it over the meat, all right? Pinch it together, right? And this would be the way Mama did it. And then she would take the ends and pinch them together like this and make kind of like a little tortellini, okay? And I have meat on my hands, I'm sorry. So anyway, let me get that off. But you can make the dumplings this way also, and you can use a little bit more meat than when you use the pelmini press. So there you have it. 2 ways to make the, sorry, I'm trying to get 2 ways to make the dumplings. And so now I'm going to finish them off, show you what I do with that. Okay, first thing I'm going to do before I plate these is I'm going to I'm going to melt this butter in the microwave. I've got like 2 tablespoons here. Okay, now it's time to make the magic, okay? So here's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to take one of these slotted spoons like this, and I'm going to fix about, I'm going to put like maybe 15, 16 dumplings in here. Okay, because it's just me and my husband tonight, and there's 37 dumplings in here. So, don't those look yummy? Don't those just look fantastic? Oh my goodness. So, I used to love when my mom made these. Oh my goodness. And my son, when he was a baby, she made them for him too, and he just loved them. So, I've probably got maybe about 15 dumplings in here, and that would be, you know, kind of a serving, okay? Then I'm going to take this spoon right here, and this is not going to be like a soup. It's going to just be like dumplings, you know, with some broth. So I'm going to put like a couple of these spoonfuls, you know, just like that, just so there'll be some broth in there, you know, to help with moisture. Okay, and then I'm going to take a little bit of melted butter. Let me get a spoon because I really don't want to drizzle this with the whole cup like that. So I want to take like a teaspoon, right? And I just want to kind of drizzle it just a little bit because, you know, you don't want too much butter. It can get ridiculous, but just a little touch of butter, okay? And then I have about a half teaspoon of fresh thyme that I took off of the stems, okay? And then I kind of rolled them up in my fingers some to activate the oils and the flavors and everything like that. And I'm going to sprinkle that on top. Doesn't that look nice? And then I prefer this Daisy sour cream, and it has a spout. You know, you can actually squeeze it out. And so I'm just going to kind of drizzle some of this on top. Okay, let's see here if I got the right one. Oh, okay. Yeah, this one needs a little help. Oh, girl. Oh, yeah. All right. So, yeah. Okay. That's how I know I'm getting old. So, anyway, I'm going to drizzle some of this on here. Okay. Kind of like so. All right. And that is my dumplings with sour cream, beef broth, a little bit of butter, some fresh thyme. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it helps you. And I really think you'll enjoy this recipe if you'll try it. Thank you and have a great day.